Welcome, everybody, and thanks for joining us. I'm Kim Oddie, Marketing Communications for Pickering. I'll be your monitor for today's seminar, Simplifying Test Interconnect with Pickering's Cable Design Tool. Today's presentation will last about 30 to 45 minutes. And following the presentation and demo, there will be a question and answer period. You can submit a question at any time by entering at the bottom of your screen in the Q&A section. Our presenters will answer as many questions as possible following the demonstration, and those not answered will be addressed after the seminar. Please disable any pop-up blockers you may have on your browser to view the presentation properly. Now let's meet our speakers. Bob Stasonis is a technical product specialist at Pickering. Over the past 40 years, Bob has held technical, sales, and marketing positions with Teradyne, Genrad, and Schlumberger. He has contributed to and written numerous papers and articles on electronic test. He is also the current president of the PXI Systems Alliance. Brennan Casey is an applications engineer with Pickering. He joined us in 2016 and brings test and measurement expertise from his work as an electrical test engineer at Bose Corporation. Now I'll hand it over to Bob.
Thanks, Kim. I think most of you will agree, cable design for test is probably one of the most frustrating functions an engineer can do. There's so many choices of connectors, wire types, insulation, understanding the environment it's in. I could go on and on. And really until recently, there wasn't a standardized procedure to provide a schematic and details to a cable tech or a cable company how to make your cables. And so because the method's not standardized, that means that the job of the cable manufacturer is slow and frustrating. In the next 30 minutes or so, we'll show you an application that's easy to use, it's flexible, and definitely available to you at no cost. On the agenda today, we'll talk about basic cable design, or as I like to call it, the old way. We'll then introduce you to our cable design tool, and we'll have a demonstration of how that works. And we'll summarize the presentation, talk a little bit about Pickering, and then answer all your questions. So let's go to the first polling question, speaking of questions. No, I'm sorry, for your cables, which of the following fits? Do you design your own cables? Do you design and manufacture them, third party, or not applicable? So a big percentage of you, 37%, manufacture your own cables too. So that means that you understand the process from both the design and the implementation. Some people design their own cables and not manufacture them. Others go to a third party. Small amount goes to third party. Not applicable is 27%. Maybe you're not involved in the cabling itself, but I'm sure you can recognize the troubles it is. So we'll talk about that next. Thanks, Kim. You can stop sharing that. So let's talk about the old way. Let's say you're a test engineer designing a piece of ATE, and now you get your instruments, your chassis. Now you have to make cables up. First thing you do is come up with a wiring list. Probably do it on an Excel spreadsheet. Brennan? Okay, thank you. Probably on Excel. Then you have to basically go through and develop a schematic. And in many cases, that's only hand-drawn. So you have that detail. Then you collect data sheets on connectors, backshells, wire types, insulation, and so on. You take all this stuff, bundle it up, and either send it downstairs to your cable department or send it to a third party. Now, obviously, when they get the documentation, there's going to be questions. So you'll have multiple discussions back and forth with the vendor to get it right the first time. The problem with all this is the cable vendor has to sort all this data out and come up with a quote. And the biggest thing about this is that basically y'all don't do it the same. There is different ways people will do stuff, and that means I, as a cable vendor, have to figure out what's going on here. No wonder this poor tech is pulling his hair out right now. So now let's look at how we can simplify your job of creating cables. Remember, cabling is critical for repeatability, accuracy, and dependability. So you want to do this right. There's a lot of parameters to worry about. The voltage you're going to be dealing with, the current, temperature, crosstalk, insertion losses, and many more. And if you're not a mechanical engineer, researching the wire types, insulation connectors, that can be daunting. And let's face it, many times a standard cable from a catalog just won't work for your needs. This is why we created the cable design tool as an efficient, simple way of creating custom cabling solutions. So let's go to our next polling question. If you design your own cabling, what software do you use? Are you using a spreadsheet, some other software, a dedicated software package, or again, not applicable. So let's see how you vote on this way. The moment you're doing a spreadsheet or non-dedicated software, so some kind of package you've done in-house or Excel or another brand, that there are a small percentage, about 19% of you, that basically have a dedicated software package for it, probably developed by your own internal people. And 28% doesn't apply to them right now. Thanks for the results, Kim. Okay, so the cable design tool is available at the URL you see at the top of the screen, pickeringtest.com/CDT. At this web page, you'll have a tutorial on how to use our cable tool, example animation showing how a cable is created, and it's very flexible, you'll see, easy to use and make changes. Now, when you're done, CDT creates a data sheet, can be saved as a PDF. You can submit it to us for quoting. You also can take this and give it to a competitor and see what they give you for a price. We do not hold your data captive. And in the case of Pickering, because all quotes are formatted through this data sheet, it's easy for us to understand what's going on and quote it quicker and perhaps lower costs. Now, when you work with Pickering, our cable techs have 10 years or more of experience. They can look at your design and suggest cost-saving design changes and optimize design for ease of use. So they may make your product better. Now, important, we do not put it on the manufacturing floor until it's signed off by both you and Pickering. So we make sure that we all agree it's the right cable and then move on from there. Some of the features that make this job easy is, as I said, we have an extensive history in cabling. So we have a big library of connectors, Backshell, wire types, and so on. You see a small example here of connector types, how many pins are on it, gender, voltage, and current. And Brennan will show you more during the demonstration. Now, if you don't see the cable you're working on or the connector you're using, you contact Pickering, and if we can, we'll update our library with your connector. Now, it doesn't stop. You don't have to wait for us. You can create a temporary connector icon. You can keep working on your design until we find if we can add that to it. You also have the ability to label every wire and even the overall cable with your nomenclature. So we'll create it for a standard that you're used to. I said earlier that a catalog cable may not work, but the basic design is a start. So we have templates for popular layouts you can take a copy and modify to fit your needs. Now, since the majority of you are using a spreadsheet, according to our polling, wiring is simpler with the cable design tool. For example, if we have similar connector types on one end and the other, we have a one-to-one wiring. We'll just basically just shift it, say pin 1 to pin 1, 2 to 2, and so on. There is an offset option that we have that you can say you're going to say from a 50 wire cable connector to a 200 wire, and we'll shift where we start wiring the pinouts. And if need be, you can do totally custom. Now, easy for you to do this is to, because the design is saved in the cloud, other people in your company, be it locally or other areas, if they have access to your account, can look at the design, comment, even change it. So you know that everybody on the project agrees with this design. So now our final polling question. What is the primary use for your cables? Are you doing communications, RF, high power, mass interconnect, or some other? So we understand what cable types you're working with and maybe point out certain features that might help in this area. So most of you are doing mass interconnect, 60% of you are doing mass interconnect. And we do work with Mac panel and BPC. Another percentage, big one, is communications, RF. So good to know about that. High power is a bigger number than I expected. Interesting. 26% are dealing with high power cables, so we can help there too. And finally, 37% of other types, which you can contact us later and discuss our capabilities if you need to. Thanks for the poll, Kim. So enough talking. Let's get to see the real demonstration. I'm going to hand the screen over to Brandon Casey, and who's going to give you a real-time demonstration of CDT.
All right. Thank you, Bob, and thank you, everybody, for coming. As you said, we're going to go through a quick demo showing just create this cable, demonstration cable live for you to see how easy this tool is to use. So when you first go to this URL that we showed earlier in the presentation, you'll see this landing page here. And as you can see, we have a couple options here for people just getting started. We have interactive tutorials, we have video instructions, and we have some getting started guides as well. So when you click on the start using the tool option, it'll bring you to a nice blank canvas here where we can start working on our cable. And so what we're going to do is make one of our standard cables. I can show you our final product. This is one of the templates that Bob has mentioned earlier today. So this is going to be what our end product is going to look like, but we'll just go through the whole process live just to show everyone how it looks. So we'll just go start again, start with a blank canvas here. And for every cable, we're going to start with our first connector. So we just add connector button. And now you have a nice sort of blank connector here, no properties to it. We're going to click on it, and you'll see a few options here pop up. The first is defining the connector type. And as this is linked to our database, all this data is live. And we can update this with, as people have any connector types that aren't listed here, if they send us the description, we can add this very easily. We also have, as Bob said, the option to add basically a dummy connector, a custom connector here, where you can put in the number of pins, gender, you can give us a link and description to it. And so when we make the final cable, we'll have all the data that we need. But we're just going to use one of our standard cables for now. So we know on the left side, we're going to use a 200 pin connector. We want this to be male. And we're going to go with this basic Mullix connector. So now we have a connector defined, we can click on it and you'll see a couple more options have been enabled. So we're going to go with our Backshell option first. Just use a basic Backshell. And as you can see, the options here are limited by the connector type you've chosen. You no need to go through the entire list of Backshells and maybe pick something that's incompatible. So we'll select this first one here. So now we have our first connector. We'll move on and start adding the other 4 connectors that we'll need. So we'll start adding our second connector, go through the same process, select our connector type. And this one we know is going to be a 50 pin connector. We know it's going to be a female, and we want a D type. So we'll just take this basic connector here, go through adding a Backshell again. And now that we have this cable in place, this doesn't affect the connection at all, but we have the option to just adjust the positioning to make it easier to see just at a glance how things look. And now, since we know we have 4 identical connectors on here, there's no need to go through and manually create each one. We're going to use this duplicate option. And as you can see, it just creates an exact copy. Again, we'll just use these options here to move it into position. We'll duplicate it one more time. And once more. So now we have our 4 50-pin connectors that we're going to use. So now we have all the connectors that are going to be used in this cable. And the next step is now to start connecting these together and adding those wire paths. So we're going to use this add path option here. And this will give you a little visual cue here. We're going to connect this to this green dot here. That's to show that it's connected. So we have our first path. And so now this is just a placeholder for now. We'll click on it like we did with the connectors. And you'll see there's a variety of options here. So we'll go with selecting our wire type. And as we know, this is going to a 50-pin connector. We want to make use of all 50 pins on that connector. We'll select a 50-core cable. And we're going to use a 28 for a wire gauge. And so you can see this limits things down. And we have all those options Bob talked about earlier that kind of give you a clue about what each of these parts is capable of. So rated temperature, voltage, insulation. So we'll just go with a pretty basic cable here. So now we have the cable type selected. We'll click on it, and as you see, there's more options enabled here. So we can select our sleeve, and this will just be the outer layer of that cable, whether you want just a straight PVC sleeve on the outside, whether you want a metallic screening for shielding purposes. So we'll just go with a braided screen sleeve. We can also define a length here. So we'll say this is a 100 centimeter cable. we also have the option to add labels along these cables here. So we select this, and let's just call this cable A. Well, we'll call it cable AB since it's going from connector A to connector B. And again, just like the connectors, we have the option to make use of the duplicate option so that we don't have to repeat our work. I don't know why that one's not allowing me to move it. Just try this again here. We'll use a connection here. We'll go through selecting the sleeve, adding a label. Duplicate that wire again. This one is just unnecessary at this point, so I'll just get rid of that. Add the label for this one. And do our final duplication for our last connection here. Make sure it's all linked up. Add our final label. So now that we have all of these connections in place, it's time to actually go in and define all these, the pin connections from connector A to connector B. So now we'll click on the cable, go into our link pins option. And as Bob mentioned earlier, there's a few different options for how you connect these pins. You can do a manual version where you select one pin on the left connector, select a pin on the right connector, and make that connection. And as you can see, as you make these connections, it'll populate in this table on the right-hand side. But that's kind of inefficient. We want to make use of this auto link feature. So as you go through and auto link positions here, we can make use of all 50 pins on that right connector, and we'll start on the first pin of the left connector. So that looks good to us. We'll say confirm. You can see the table gets populated again. Pin 1 of the left connector goes to pin 1 of the right connector. So this all looks good. We'll say use changes. And we'll just go through that same process for each of these. But now on the second cable, if we see this auto link option again, we know we don't want to duplicate these connections on the left connector. So we'll make use of this offset. And we can slide this over because we know we want to start at pin 51 of this left connector. So as you see with this offset, we are now going from, you can go all the way down here, pin 51 of our large 200 pin connector. And it's highlighted all the way up to pin 100 on this connector, and it's selected all 50 pins on the right-hand side. So we'll say confirm. And again, you can verify that information just looking at this right-hand table. Select use changes. Repeat the process for this third connector. Link all 50 pins consecutively. We'll set our offset to 100 so that we start at pin 101 and go all the way through pin 150. Confirm that selection, verify it in the table. And we'll do that again for our final cable here. Set our offset to 150, and that should take care of this last section on the left-hand side of this left connector, pins 151 through 200. We'll confirm that, use these changes, and now we have basically our completed cable. There's always customization you can do here. You can go back and edit any of the things you've done. But we're for now, we're done with designing the cable. So we'll go into this data sheet option here. And that will bring you to this nice graphical representation of the cable you've just created. If you scroll down, you'll see all of the details for this cable, including the connectors used, the manufacturing part numbers, pin counts, the gender of the connectors. You'll also see that same sort of information for the backshells and the wires that you've used in your cable. If we continue scrolling down, you'll see the pinout diagram for this cable, very helpful for your own internal documentation purposes. So you can see all the 4 different paths that we created here and the pin numberings for each of these. And a nice feature actually is if you select a cable that uses multiple colors on that for the different strands in the cable, you'll see those colors appear in this table. We picked a really basic cable for this one, so they're all black cables internally, unfortunately, but it is very helpful when you're trying to modify your own cables, or if you use an unterminated end, just to know which of the connections are which. And you'll see in here that we have this create PDF file option. And if you click on that, it will bring you to a nice PDF document that you can export. You can save it. You can use it for your own internal purposes for documentation. You can send it to us. You can send it around for approval at your own company, or you can even take it to another vendor. We don't keep your data just to ourselves, so you can take this wherever you need to use it. And it has basically all that same information we just saw. And this one is a nice example of, as I just mentioned, the colors assigned to each one of these pins here, making it really easy to make any modifications or to use any unterminated connections to know where those pins go. And so that is the basics of the tool. And I hope you guys find it useful. And with that, I will give the floor back to Bob.
Thank you, Brennan. Appreciate it. We hope you found this presentation informing and of interest. From this point, it's clear that we want to be your partner for connectivity. We want to help you get cabling solutions done. We've done it for virtually any cabling needs. We focused originally on Pickering products, but we've done competitors. We've done cables that don't fit ATE, there's other applications. And you can see the CDT allows you to design new cables quickly and easily. The big advantage too, if you work with Pickering, is that we'll give you precisely what you need. You want to change colors, you want to work on, do you want to change connector types, you want the logo put on it, we can work with that. And we're flexible to help you with new cable designs or create new ones or edit ones. We're there to help at no charge. And our production line is very flexible. We can manufacture a single one of these or do high volume, whatever you need. And we feel our pricing is very, very competitive. Now I'd tell you a little bit more about Pickering Group, because we have more than just cables. Next slide, thank you. Pickering Connect is part of the Pickering group of companies. We have a global presence. We have 9 direct sales support offices in 8 different countries. We have a wide network of reps in North America, international agents abroad, anywhere they're making electronics. And we have 2 factories, one in the UK, one in the Czech Republic. So we definitely have the capability of building what you need in 2 places. There's over 400 of us doing this now, and we've been doing it for the last 50+ years. We started originally with Pickering Electronics, which has been building reed relays since 1968. These relays have been used for decades on Pickering products, third-party ATE, instrumentation. We have a reputation as one of the best ATE relays in the world. And basically, Pickering Interfaces is a platform independent. By that, I mean, you can see here on the screen, we build PXI switching, LXI, USB. We have PCI based. So we've been doing switching and simulation solutions since 1988. All of our switching, all of our cable design and assembly is done in-house. So we control the whole process from start to finish. Our software group does more than just creating software drivers for our products to work with all popular languages. We also have application software to make the job of developing test code easier and faster. And as we talked about now, Pickering Connect division has been around since 2010. We support cables for everyone, including the 2 major mass interconnect companies like MacPanel and VPC. So with that, I want to thank you again, and I'll turn this over to Kim for questions and answers.
Thanks, Bob. We do have some time for questions, so I will go ahead and start that. Let's see, the first one is, what file types do you export? And do you use STEP or DXF? Brennan?
Sure. Currently, we export from that tool directly to that PDF datasheet. We also have step files available for any of our Pickering connectors. Unfortunately, we don't have the step files for other manufacturers, but we do list those as options in our cable design tool.
Okay, thanks, Brennan. Let's see, next one. We are mainly using VPC mass interconnection and NI devices. Does the program have libraries for VPC and NI devices? Bob, you want to take that one?
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, we've worked with VPC since the beginning of Pickering interfaces. So we have designs for them directly and the connectors. NI, there's been a select few. I won't say a lot, but we've done probably a half a dozen different NI devices in our catalog now. And as I said earlier, we can do new ones very quickly once we get the information on it.
Great, thank you. Let's see here. Next one. How do you know if pin 1 is on the top or the bottom? Brendan, do you want to take that?
Sure. At least for our connectors, you saw when I was going through that there is the diagram for the connector that shows where those pin positions are. We also have all the data sheets for all of our connectors online. They're free to get, so it's pretty easy to see where all the pinouts go on each of the connectors.
Okay, great. Thank you. Let's see, next one. My manager will want all of the data on the cable, connector model number and specs, wire size and insulation type, etc. Is this going to be included on the data sheet? Brendan?
Yes, you can just pop back over and take a look here. You can see all of the detail that's included on this data sheet. We have the connector names, manufacturer product codes, and all that sort of information is available as well.
Great. Let's see. We don't have access to the internet for security reasons. Is there an offline version of the tool available? Brendan?
At this time, there is no offline version of this, as it does link back to our databases where we're constantly adding new connectors, and it links to our own supply, what we have on stock. So unfortunately, it is online only at this time.
Okay. Let's see. How do you handle the screen on a twisted pair screen cable? Typically, the screen must attach to the back shell.
Sure. When we do these cable designs for cables that have an exterior screen, those will be connected to the back shell of the connectors. We can go back into this link pin option as well and just take a look here. And you'll see there's a couple other options. If I clear everything out here, you can add edit shell pins, and you can also do one-sided links to leave things unterminated to make those connections yourself, or you can use this edit shell pins, and you can assign any one of these pins to connect to that outside shell for grounding purposes.
Thanks, Brendan. Let's see what we got next here. How fast can I receive an estimated price and lead time?
Typically, we can turn estimated, if we have all the data that we need, we'll turn that around within a day or two. And yeah, typically within 24 hours, we'll get back to you either with a quote, or if we have some questions or we have some suggestions, we'll also get back to you within about 24 hours.
Great. Next one, do you have ITA, interface test adapter solutions?
We do not make any test adapters. We just make the custom cabling. If you're looking for a larger test solution like that, you'd have to go with some other integrator.
Okay. Next one, does your tool have links to the connectors, backshells, and wires?
Within the tool at the moment, there are no live links back to our product databases. Unfortunately, so you'd have to use the, just go back into our website and search on that product number.
Is there a way to search connector by part number when adding the connector?
Right now, the part number is not one of the search fields in that filter. Take a quick look at the connector here again. I'll just add a blank connector and look, just to show all the options available to find the connector that would work for your application. So we have all these filters available for types, family of connector, voltage, current you can sort by as well. We do have the manufacturer listed as well, so you could just use the search function in your browser. And again, if nothing's listed there or if you don't see it in the list, you can just go into the custom thing, provide us a link or a description to what the connector is, and we can make a quote based on that.
Okay, great. Thanks, Brennan. Let's see. Why was your offset on cable 2 set at 50, not 51, and cable 3 set at 101?
Oh, if it was at 101 in cable 3, that means I was off by 1. The index starts at 1 with our tool.
Okay, thanks.
Operator error.
Can I add a name for a wire terminals?
A name for a wire terminal. We have this label option for the wire. We also have you can name all of the connectors as well. And if there's nothing available in the tool to do exactly what you want, you can submit the design as close as you can get it to us, and then we'll get back to you and we'll work with you based on that design to add anything you want to add.
Yeah. I believe in that too, Brenda added that if it's an unterminated, in other words, a cable connector on one side and unterminated wires, you can indicate on those what exactly the signal type is. So you can put markings in, but not when the cable's bundled together like this.
Yes, in the case of unterminated, the unterminated ends can be labeled.
Thank you. Is there a way to see or specify how the connector is turned compared to the backshell?
Well, typically the backshell will fit on a connector in only one way. So you would have to refer to the documentation for the connector or the backshell just to see how that looks. We have the step files available, at least for all of our products, so you can get a nice visual 3D view of how everything's going to look.
Okay. All right, next one. When producing a long cable, say 3 meters long with many twisted pair and single wires in the cable, you need to twist the cable for flexibility. Where is this specified?
That would depend on the bend radius of the internal cores in that cable, and I guess on the external screening as well. So that information would be in the documentation on the wire type. And that's one of those things that it would be, you would submit a design, or you don't even have to submit a design, just contact us. We'll work with you to find something that will fit your application. We have a lot of people that are trying to fit in very tight integrated solutions, like behind panels, behind doors. So that is definitely a concern that we get a lot of, is the bend radius of these cables.
Great, thank you. Next one, let's see. Do you have an option for high voltage cables, 5 to 10 kV?
I believe our highest offering is around 1 kilovolt, which is, or maybe up to a 1500. But this is what we do internally. We can work with other vendors to provide a cable that will meet those applications. The ones we build internally are generally ones we build to match with Pickering products, and Pickering switching maxes out around 1 kV. But again, we're a custom cable design house. If there's something you need, we will work with you to make it.
Thank you. Let's see, can you add signal names to schematics?
A signal name as in, let me just take a look at the data sheet here. So there is the option when you're in here that you can, you go to the actual live edit data sheet here. So you can trying to remember where this option was. I think it was when you define the links on a connector, there is the option to provide labels, provide names for each of these connections. And again, that's if there's if you need those labels on those internal strands, just let us know. We're happy to add that to a design.
Great. Can you export to Microsoft Visio?
Unfortunately, no. The only export from this tool is the PDF. We have all the data sheets with diagrams that you can copy out of our data sheets. We have step models. We can make visual aids like that available, but we can't export directly to Visio.
I don't think I answered this one or asked this one yet. Virginia panel G6 series supported in the tool?
We work with Virginia panel products. I'm not familiar with the G6 line specifically, but I'm not aware of any products they have that we would not be able to work with at this time.
Yeah. If it's not here now, we can add it definitely, because we work very closely with VPC.
Which time do we got? We got about 4 more minutes. Can I add small passive electronics into the cable?
Not using this tool, that would be one that you would have to contact us with. It's possible we might be able to do that for custom designs. It's not a request we see very often. So it would be something you would have to contact us and we could try and find a solution together.
I think that's about all the questions we have.
Someone put one on the chat window just now, Kim.
Oh yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
Do you have amp latch or similar wire to board connectors?
I'm not sure if those are listed in the list of products here, but it is something we can definitely account for in our cable tools.
Yep. I haven't seen it either, but as we said earlier, both of us have said, give us the data sheet or the link to it on the web. We'll look at it and say, yes, we can, or no, we can't, but chances are we can.
Okay, I think that's all we have for right now. If we didn't get to your questions, or if you have questions later on, Brendan, can you go back to the, yeah, there you go. Bob and Brendan's contact information is right there, their email addresses, or you can go to our contact us page at any time and see if you can get a hold of us and we can answer your questions. I thank you again for attending the webinar. If you have any additional questions, please feel free to reach out to us and be on the lookout because we're going to have more seminars coming soon. We thank you and have a great rest of your day.